right, everyone. Welcome to the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast, the official podcast of the Cardinals Nation 24/7 Facebook page and the Cardinals Nation Facebook group. Tonight, I want to do one thing, Chris, before I do anything else. I have I think people can hear me. Boy, I sure hope people can hear me right now. I realized that I had one cable unplugged seconds, literally millisecond before I unmuted my mic here at the mixer. I am sorry, everyone. Didn't expect that to happen. I usually very buttoned up for these things. So the stretch run is here till we get to the end of the year. Chicago's barely holding on to the lead. They're only one game ahead of the Brewers. They ended up winning tonight. So we'll see what Milwaukee does, or if Milwaukee might be off today. So the Cubs might have a little bit more cushion. Cardinals 2.5 games behind the Brewers, 3.5 games, now 4 games behind the Cubs. So we have, I think, several scenarios to discuss. One of them I favor a lot. Ahead, we have the Dodgers coming to town, only 2 games behind the Cardinals in that wild card for that second wild card position. And so to talk about that and much, much more with us tonight is former Cardinals system farmhand Eric Haberer, former Springfield Cardinal, and once battery mate to a closer we all know called Jason Mott. Larry Cox is not joining us tonight, regardless of what the announcement has said. Larry could not make it back home in time, so Larry is going to sit this one out, and that's quite all right. So before we get into the topics tonight, gentlemen, Eric, welcome to the show. It's only been about a year and a half.
Yeah, about time, right?
Yeah, right. You know, you guys, well, Chris knew this, nobody else did, but Eric was to be on a few weeks ago, but forgot he was in Mexico, and I think the minute call rate would have been a little bit higher, but I should have just called you anyway. So Eric, thank you for being on tonight. Now you're out in Arizona, you're a few hours behind us, and I want to say this: happy birthday tomorrow in advance.
Hey, thank you very much. You know, they're the first one who wished me happy birthday, so I'll jot that down. Remember that.
Yeah. Favorite kind of sibling, I guess. I guess I should probably tell everybody that. Eric, I happen to be married to his sister. So we'll just get that out of the way right now because somebody's gonna uncover that. I also want to say happy birthday to the slump buster chug, Matthew Burns. It is his day today, and I'm expecting at some point in time to perhaps get a slump buster chug video, either one posted up on the Facebook group site, or perhaps we can even get one, Chris, via video and be able to put that one up.
He better get on it pretty quick. We're down 4-1. We need that slump buster.
He does, and I'll have to message him here pretty soon, see if he can jump all over that. In fact, I'm going to put the scores up in front of me now. I was disappointed to hear that the Cubs win. I don't like to hear that stuff before we hit the record button. I like it when they play a little bit later. I don't like the fact that the Cardinals are now down 6-1. I'm just going to turn this off, and so we can focus on the topics tonight. Damn it, man! Really, 6-1, 6-1, and you got Kershaw pitching. So we're going to call it tonight, right? I mean, take the series. You got to take 3 out of 4. You at least have to come out 2-2. You have to keep the Dodgers 2 games behind you. When this is all said and done. This is what we were fearing, right, Chris? We talked about this. I don't want to jump ahead too much, but I wanted a bigger cushion between the Dodgers and the Cardinals by the time they visited St. Louis going into this weekend, and I don't like really what I'm seeing tonight.
No, we got to split at least.
Exactly. One bullet. Chris, I'm glad you brought this up before we started tonight because I had it buried a little bit, and perhaps that was a mistake on my part. Barney Miklas, I'd like for you to go ahead and give us all the rundown on this whole situation.
Well, the rundown the other night was when Wainwright got his start, and all over social media there was people that were a little on edge on whether or not he should have got the start or, you know, had a very short leash. But upon getting rocked a little bit, Barney decided to take to Twitter with, "I'm sorry to be rude here, but there are 19 games left in the season. What's the objective here this evening for the Cardinals? To win or to have nostalgia night?" Wainwright responded after the game, of course. "We did both tonight, big fella. Big win for the Cardinals. Definitely taking the high road with my response to you tonight, Barney." That was, I don't know, there was a lot of feedback, both Bernie supporters and Wainwright supporters coming out on that. And yeah, it didn't take me long to get fired up about it. The whole thing with Wainwright, I mean, everybody can have their opinions on it, and I've kind of voiced mine on the fact of if anybody deserved one start, it was Wainwright. Upon his rehab, he had looked sharp in every outing that he'd been in. And he didn't do too bad for that game. He got in a little rough patch, and he did finish it up with 6. He got 6 outs afterwards. So he did his part. We did get the win thanks to Matt Adams, but yeah, it was definitely a wild night on Twitter for sure.
Yeah, and Eric, I want to get your opinion on that. You said something before we hit the record button tonight, and so I want to let you go ahead, and I know this is new news to you. Like literally, we just told you the situation before we started. So, how do you feel about that? And did you ever have any counters with old Bernie?
No, I never dealt with Bernie, and I was never good enough to be in the same conversation as Adam Wainwright. But I always look at it as what have you done for me? But also, if the name wasn't Wainwright, would he even be in the major leagues? Would he not be released or in AAA? And I get where Bernie's coming from, whereas we got to win these games to make the playoffs. And nostalgia is great, but so is making the playoffs. So, whether he's better than Gomber or whoever else could be starting, I don't know that, but I think that's where he's coming from. And I kind of tend to agree with him that I'd rather be in the playoffs and see the Cardinals there than to see Wainwright pitch a game.
Yeah, and I think most would agree with you. And I think the idea behind what Bernie was trying to say, most of us can understand. I think it's just the way it came across, the way he phrased it on Twitter. Probably, Chris, is what got most people fired up, because I think most of us look. The fact is, we haven't had Wainwright since May, and the Cardinals have went on their run since then. Did we need him to come back? No. His presence in the dugout, does that mean something? Yeah, I don't know how you quantify it, but I know it does. And I know he's a good teammate. With that said, what we've seen over the last 2 years, I think it is risky. If we were in the middle of June, guys, we wouldn't be having this conversation. They'd be like, you know what, we're going to give Wainwright another run. We're going to see if he has anything left. We've got a lot of season left, and it's not such a big deal. But the fact that we're in September, they're trying to, they're going to be, if it holds true tonight, it's now 7-1. It should just, I said I was going to turn this off and I didn't. It's 7-1 now. So it looks like the Cardinals are going to be just a game ahead of the Dodgers by the end of the day, holding on to that wild card spot. So now it just doesn't feel like the time to take risks, to take chances. If they want to throw him in the bullpen, I probably understand that a little bit more. But Bernie, problem with Bernie is, there's about 24 different ways I could think that he could have phrased that on Twitter. And Twitter's never a good idea when you're emotional. I'm just telling you that right now, people. If for those of you who haven't figured it out yet, it's just not a good place to go. I realize he's a public figure and he's paid for his opinion, but
well, his first line of "I'm sorry to be rude here." I mean, he knew he was trying to be rude, and the whole thing with it's hot take for Bernie. He's trying to get clicks for articles, whether it's for The Athletic, for 101 out of ESPN. He does what he does to get a following and to get everybody worked up. A prime example would be like tonight. Is he going to burn Gomber at the stake for giving up the runs that he give up? And with it being September, I do agree. You can't be throwing out people, but at the same time, it's September with the call-ups, and that's a chance to give some of these arms a rest. And with Wainwright coming back, he was about as better of an option as a Luke Weaver or some of the other guys that they've been struggling too. So to me, it was kind of like it was kind of a little bit of a nostalgia move, but Wainwright, he worked hard to get back, and like I said, if anybody deserves at least that one start, I'd give it to Wainwright.
Yeah, I definitely understand both sides of the argument. I get it. You brought up a good point with somebody like Luke Weaver has looked just awful. Yeah, he looks really bad, and I don't see a place for him. As the way things stand right now, I don't know how he fits in on the postseason roster at all. I don't think he will.
No,
just based on what we've seen recently, and I don't know how many of the games, Eric, you've been able to keep on top of lately. It's just been, Luke Weaver was one of our more promising arms, I think, heading into the year, right, Chris? And he's not looked good for over a month now. He's looked actually pretty bad.
Yeah, I guess where I fall on the Luke Weaver and all the young pitching is I don't think the Cardinals have a legitimate chance at the World Series title this year. Even if they do make the playoffs, I think that's a pipe dream. You look at the strength of the AL, the strength of the Cubs. So do I not want my young pitchers to learn to battle through adversity, to understand how it is to pitch in September in a playoff race? I look at the next 5 years. I see value in that as opposed to seeing Wainwright finish out his career and having as Bernie said, a nostalgic start. That's where I fall on it. I don't think this year's the year for the Cardinals, but with those arms, you give it 3, 4, 5 years, that's the window.
Yeah, I think a lot of us see that, and I don't know. As we were in the midst of last year, Chris, I mean, all of a sudden we've had this surge of young players now that have come up and they've excited the fan base. We've seen the young arms, the Gomber, Hudson, Weaver for a time at the beginning of the year. We've seen Ponce de Leon. And so there's a ton of promise with the young pitching staff, both in the bullpen and in the starting rotation. And another pitcher we haven't talked about for quite some time, at least not in depth, has been Carlos Martinez, who's now been dubbed the closer. And I know that on the series preview episode that Larry and Jared ended up doing last night, they touched on that just a bit. And I don't know if we did or not. I think maybe Jared and I did on Sunday. How do you guys feel about Martinez being that closer at the end of games, and what's happened to Bud Norris? Eric, have you been how much have you been seeing these guys late in the late innings? What do you think?
I mean, the bullpen for the Cardinals hasn't been great toward the back end. Norris hadn't had the greatest season. I'm not a huge Carlos Martinez fan. I think that he's unreliable as an ace. I don't think he throws enough strikes. I don't think he doesn't appear to be fully engaged in the team. He's more of a me first type player. That's just from watching him on TV. Mm-hmm. So, but his stuff is electric. And the fact that you can go, he's going in there, he's got a chance to be successful. And I think he's given the Cardinals the best chance to close out the games at this point.
I would agree with that, because the one thing that Carlos Martinez can give, and I also agree with a couple other things you've said about him. I don't know about the me player, team player type of thing with him. I just know that the times I've seen him pitch in a high leverage situation. Is that Dory in the background?
It is. The old lady just got home from work, and so
you call
the dog's pretty
the
excited.
old lady.
Oh boy, man!
I got slapped last time I called mine.
Yeah, he might, because now this is recorded.
You just got to say it enough times, and they just don't even pay attention to you.
Okay. No, what I was saying about Martinez, we've seen him pitch in high leverage games, not even just situations, but just games.
Yeah.
Opening day. I think he just felt like he's always felt like a pitcher that at times will just get in his own way. Let his emotions, let the adrenaline get to him. He just can't get it under control, it seems. And so he at times, he can make me nervous. Now, if he's in the closer role at this point in time, he is the one arm down there. And I know we have Jordan Hicks, who can throw 105 miles an hour. But with Carlos Martinez, he is electric and he has a ton of movement. And when he's dialed in, he's really, really good. One of the best in baseball. We'll see what happens. I actually like that we have a high strikeout guy in the bullpen right now, because we actually didn't before. I mean, one of the higher strikeout rates, I believe, Ben Cerruti will correct me if I'm wrong, is I think it was Bud Norris at one point in time. And so Martinez, I think, is going to be a plus. I think it's a good spot for him, given his the injuries and the time he spent out this year. I think it's a good fit at the moment. I clearly expect him in the rotation next year, though. Moving on a bit, I want to go back a little bit. I want to get off the current baseball. And Eric, you grew up a Cardinals fan, and you were from Bloomington, Illinois, which is right there in central Illinois, nearby where I grew up. And it always at least seemed to be a split to me between Cubs and Cardinals fan in that territory. So for those of you who are just from Missouri or the St. Louis area, don't quite understand when your town seems like it's 50-50. This rivalry means something just slightly different. And so, Eric, I think that the Peoria area I know was 50-50. I can't speak to Bloomington as well as you can, but give us a little bit of that just from your background. You were a Cubs Little League player at one point, is what?
For pony ball, I was a Cub. That was an assigned team, so I wasn't like I chose, But yeah, I mean, it was definitely 50-50. Growing up, you have half your friends are Cardinal fans, half your friends are Cubs fans, and you have an occasional White Sox fan that you might run across randomly. But it was always intense. It was always, going to baseball practice. You'd have, good nature jabbing back and forth at, the Cardinals doing well, or actually more at that time was more of the Cubs doing poorly. Is what we mainly talked about. So.
Life was good then.
It was. I remember the good old days.
Yeah, and okay, so it was essentially the same. I mean, I even had family members that were Cub fans, not under my roof, but family members, cousins that
I have one under my roof right now.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
How did I forget that? Chris, he married a Cubs fan.
Oh man. Well, my son's mother is a Cub fan.
That's right,
so
too.
I could relate, but
the hell is wrong with you guys?
I blame my father-in-law. He's a diehard Cardinal fan, and he married a Cub fan and let his daughters become Cub fans. So it's really his fault.
I did not know that bit of history.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do
I
that.
wised up and got with a Cardinal fan. It's all good.
You did. Yeah. Okay. All right, Eric. So growing up, you grew up a Cardinals fan, and then, we go through high school. You pitched at Southern Illinois University. You end up being drafted by the Cardinals. And I believe in the 4th round. Do I have that right, or the 5th round?
It was the 3rd round.
Oh.
You can give me a little credit here.
Okay, fine. It was the 3rd round. But I mean, just walk us through that, because for a lot of us that didn't have the talent or didn't have the chance, the ability to play professionally at all. Just take us through in your mind getting picked by the team you grew up rooting for. How did that? I mean, walk us through the whole process.
So, whole process. Your season starts, and I thought I had a decent chance to get picked up by someone. And at this point, every team is, they send me your questionnaires, and I'm filling out personality profiles for, 30 teams and all these different scouting agencies and agents. And one of the teams that I didn't really talk to that much was actually the Cardinals. I think I talked to the scout there. His name was Scott Melvin, I believe. And he just reached out to me randomly one day, right, probably a month before the draft. And that was the only communication I had with him. So I didn't think that was an option, and I thought, the Cardinals at that point had a pretty, I would say, weak farm system. And so I looked at that as a place I would like to be, just because you have less competition to make the jump to the big leagues. But then all of a sudden draft day, and this is before, it was on TV. I just sitting there in my college baseball coach's office, just watching the internet and hitting refresh. And
was it dial up? Was it dial up internet at the time, or was it DSL? How long did you have to wait?
It was DSL, but I mean, this is 2004, so we're not talking super fast. And it was our budget at Southern Illinois wasn't the greatest, so I can't imagine we had the best service either. But yeah. It was nerve-wracking for sure, and it was a relief, eventually to get picked up. So, did you think you would go in the 3rd round? Did you think you would go that high, or do you think you would go higher? You talk to agents. I talked to my agent and talked to a lot of different teams, and there was talk of me going higher. And so then you get your hopes up that you're going to go. There was talk of me going maybe in the supplemental 1st round to the Twins or the Yankees that year had a couple picks.
Yeah.
And then it didn't happen. And then it's like, well, I'll get drafted soon. And then it just continually goes, and you just see it. And it's more than just, there's pride involved, and you see the team that you talk to, but every time it gets picked, you got to think that's $10,000 that you just lost off a signing bonus. So yeah. It's quite stressful, but it's obviously a great memory that I have, is just, sitting there with all my teammates, and then the relief of actually getting picked, and then, kind of celebrating with everybody. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's here's the funny thing. So we've known each other for about a decade now.
Yeah,
that's the first time we've ever had this conversation.
It is.
I know. I haven't asked. I thought if he wants to talk, he knows I'm a huge Cardinal fan. If he wants to talk to me about it, he will. I'm not going to prod him. I was saving it all up because I knew 10 years ago I was eventually going to have a podcast. You were going to be on it. But, no, so it's just a fascinating thing. The feeling of getting picked by the team that you always rooted for as a kid, dreamt about being on, is just I couldn't imagine that feeling. I'd like to say I was about an average high school player. I don't think I had a shot ever. I was definitely not a pitcher. And by the way, so people that don't know, and I didn't mention this, Eric, you were a left-handed pitcher.
Correct.
And so did you always, was baseball your thing growing up, or was it another sport?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I dabbled in other sports, but that was, it was winter ball, fall ball, spring ball, summer ball. I mean, it was pretty much year round, whether it be training or actually playing in different leagues. It was from the time I was a little kid. I can always remember going out and playing catch with my dad. That was always what we did. It was just a baseball family, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely is. I don't know if you remember your sister and I's house there, but she's a huge baseball fan. She won't go near this microphone or camera. I think that's DNA, right? I don't think any of them like even stuff like FaceTime. They can't stand. But your sister, I'd be out on the member of the back deck, and the Cardinal game would be on inside, and I'd hear just an expletive just echo across that pond, bounce off the houses, and echo back. So your sister's hugely into baseball. Yeah, she is. She gets intense. It actually makes me nervous watching, especially something in the playoffs. It's almost unbearable. But she's a huge fan too. So you're right. You absolutely come from a baseball family. In fact, we'll have to tell the story about the bobbleheads being forced to face the walls, I think for a good 6-7 years at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think my mom had a grudge against the Cardinals for a very long time when I got released.
Yeah. And the first time I went over there, I'm like, why are all the bobbleheads facing the wall? And
they were in timeout.
They were in timeout. Yeah. Yes. They got put out. They got put in timeout. Absolutely. That's absolutely the right way to put it. But anyway, Eric, so a little bit of your time, I'm not going to ask you back to day one in the minor leagues, but what was always interesting is that your battery mate, one of your catchers, happened to be Jason Mott when he was a catcher. Were you around when he was getting converted to pitcher?
Yeah, I was. When he was when I threw to him, that was his last year catching. And I just gotten called up to high A, which is West Palm Beach. And, I'm throwing to him and he's throwing the ball to second base between the innings. And he's like about hitting me. And I'm like, hey, Jason, why don't you stop bouncing the ball and, throw it on a fly and don't hit me? And he's like, what? I am actually throwing it on a fly. And I had never seen arm strength like that. And so the next inning I go out there and I kind of take a step back and watch him. And the ball was across the pitcher's mound was probably waist high. And it still got to the second base right there it was the most amazing thing. And then, he struggled with hitting, and then the next year they'd turn him into a closer. And he was just, he wasn't throwing 100 at that point. He was probably throwing, 94, 95. And it was amazing to see him transition over to that. I mean, and he never really developed a second pitch in the minors. He never really had to at that point. And then, obviously, he was in the big leagues and was quite successful for an extended period of time.
So, we all wonder this, and I think, Chris, that, we have definitely former Cardinals. We have former minor leaguers that are part of the Cardinals Nation group. But, rarely do people understand what life is like as a minor leaguer. And we have a ton of, and I think you played in this, the area that I live in now, I believe that you had at least traveled through and played in some of the towns like Kannapolis, I believe.
No, not in that league. I was in the Appalachian League, so I think the closest we got to you would have been like Danville, North Carolina, I think.
Okay. Well, I mean, but what was life like that? Go back to A-ball, like weekly, nightly. How many bus trips? I mean, how hard is it to focus, or is it easy to focus because you have that downtime where you're traveling so much on the road?
I think it changes as you mature, and when I first got into rookie ball, and it was the Appalachian League, so Johnson City, we were making $850 a month. That's pre-taxes. And then we were staying at a Red Roof Inn. And so they took $300 out of your paycheck just to pay for the hotel that you stayed in the whole summer. And so you basically were making no money. You were I was fortunate enough to have a signing bonus, but teammates I had were getting money sent in from their parents. And, we all didn't know anybody. We just got drafted or signed or whatever. And it was a very unique situation. As I progressed through different levels, you get to become friends and you get to have, to have an interest with each other outside of baseball. But I think one of the unique things is you still have like a day, right now 9 to 5 is your work day, but for baseball, it's 11 a.m. till 2 a.m. is basically when you live your life. Because, you think about, you get done with a baseball game, it's 11 o'clock, 10:30. I mean, you're wired. So shower, dress, change. Even if you're at home, you're not getting out of the stadium until midnight, and you don't go to bed. So you go have a few cocktails, you go to someone's house and hang out, and all of a sudden it's 2, 3 a.m. You go to sleep and then sleep 8 hours. You get up at 11, do it all over again. So your life just shifts to a night lifestyle, you know.
So
and
basically become a second shift worker is what you're saying.
Basically, yes. And I think it's and I wasn't a position player, so I wasn't playing every day, but you know, the days as a starting pitcher where you're not pitching, you're done with all your activities by, you know, 3-4 o'clock, and then you're just sitting there watching a baseball game and hanging out. So you get to, you know, build really strong relationships as you're going. That's why, you know, when people talk about the thing they miss is the teammates, and that's exactly what it is. Just because you sit there and talk to them and get to know everybody for 4 hours every day.
Well, you have no choice. I mean, you're in a bullpen. You have.
It's like we have forced friends.
Were there many Latin American players that you were in the minor leagues with, and did they like, what was the communication like with some of the? Did you befriend, or were you able to?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. So when I was playing, it was before the Cardinals actually had the Dominican camp and the Dominican academy, I guess is what it's called. So we didn't have a ton of Latin players. We had some from Venezuela, but it was very much, you know, I took 5 years of Spanish in high school and college, using that, you know, little Spanish I knew to communicate back and forth. And, you know, you had some people that spoke better than others, but you kind of formed your own language, your own Spanglish language, if you will, where half the words are English, half the words are Spanish, and you kind of get to know what you're talking about. So,
well, that's interesting. And yeah, I was wondering that because I when I was in the Marine Corps, at least a third of the men I was in with were Hispanic. I mean, they were from you know, the Texas, New Mexico, Arizona area, and their parents had come over and you know, gotten jobs, and their primary language was Spanish. And in fact, 3 of my drill instructors out of the 6, yes, I had 6. It's not like Full Metal Jacket where you have 1. Today you have 6. 3 of them are Hispanic, and I'm telling you, they were the most intense guys I've ever trained with. But most of the guys I was in boot camp with, and even a couple of roommates afterwards, were all Hispanic. So I understand at least the Spanglish kind of connection that you make, because you find yourself using words and that are half Spanish, half English. But yeah, you kind of meet in a middle ground somewhere.
Yeah, and if you say English words in a Spanish accent, I think they understand it better.
Exactly. You know, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. No, that's perfect. So you were in primarily under the Walt Jocketty as the GM, you know, kind of running the farm system era. And then all of a sudden it transitioned one year. They brought in a guy, Jeffrey Luno. I'm not sure if I should say his name to you or not. But they brought him in.
It's fine. I'm over. I can move on. It's been enough time.
I didn't want to open any stitches or reopen any scars. You know what I meant? But anyway, so, you know, take us back to that whole transition. Was it felt in the minor leagues? Was it like an impact there, or was it kind of one of those things that happened late and all of a sudden, or did you guys feel that it was coming?
Yeah, no, when the Jocketty administration, you know, left, and it was still, you know, Mosaic was still there, but when Jeffrey Luno took over the player development role, and he brought in all his players for that first draft, which would have been the 2005 draft class. Yeah, and I was a 2004 class. You felt that we weren't one of his guys. And it's not to say that, you know, if I had pitched better and been a more talented person, I wouldn't have made it. Right. You know, he would have held me back. I don't see that. I just know that he liked a different style of player. And based on the track record of the players he drafted versus the players that, you know, were drafted prior, you know, the 02 through 04 classes, the Jeffrey Luno classes were substantially more successful. So I can't really knock them for what they did, but yeah, I definitely could feel it. You know, it wasn't, you know, if I was pitching as equal as someone who was, you know, 2005 draft class, that wasn't going to be good enough. I knew it. Everyone knew it. It wasn't, I don't think anybody took offense to it. I just think that's just the way of the world, and that's just the way it is. You know, if I was in charge of something, I would want my guy to be successful, so I can say, hey, look what I did. Right. You know, I don't begrudge, you know, Jeff for releasing me. At that point, I wasn't as good as I was when I was drafted. I had, you know, not performed as well. Got hurt and just wasn't meant to be. But it was definitely, you could feel it. I think everyone knew it, and it worked out that way. So. And
then you married a Cubs fan. Out of retaliation. Out of retaliation.
Yeah. There you go.
No, I'm kidding. we love Abigail here. All right, so I want to go to another thing here, Chris. I had brought up, or I'd wanted to bring up, because Eric and I this is where we're going to start butting heads. Okay,
big time.
All right, so pace of play. I want to get your perspective as a former player. I know you had to go through at times. I know it sounds like blasphemy for me as a fan to say sometimes baseball can, you can go through doldrums, repetition, time spent on the field, games are really long. But asking you as a former athlete, they had several proposals or ideas that have been brought up. One of them was shortening the games to 7 innings.
I think it's extremely exciting if you did it that way. If you look at it now, and I think as a fan, you watch innings 1, 2, 3, and it's kind of the game's starting to progress, and you kind of see how it's going to go. But you get plenty of time to make up if something bad happens. But all of a sudden, a 7-inning game, you don't have that time. So now you've enhanced, or you've made each inning so much more intense, each pitch so much more intense, that it adds more drama. It adds more action to the game. And I think that's really what somewhat is as the millennial generation, if you will, that span of attention span, they have to have that to watch the sport. And 9-inning games really long. I mean, I personally don't think 7-inning games will ever go forward. But when we played them in the minor leagues, they were so fast. They were exciting because everything mattered. It was just a heightened intensity for every pitch, every at bat that you don't get with a 9-inning game.
Chris, how do you feel about that?
Well, I can respectfully disagree. But, I mean, for me, knowing that at the big league level, you've got so many talented pitchers, and already you can see the transition of pitchers not pitching complete games like they used to. And to me, a 7-inning game, you're not going to need to carry near the pitchers that they carry now. And like you said, I mean, it may never come to fruition on it happening, but baseball's went a different direction to kind of meet the millennial needs of whether it's the pitch clock and the intentional walk, not throwing the 4 balls, just point to first base. But when I hear things that in the minor leagues where at an extra inning game we're going to start a runner at second base, I don't want to see that in the majors. Just what happens when that guy from second scores? I mean, who gets the earned run on that? Just little things like that I'm not saying baseball has to stay a certain way, but it's already kind of changing in some ways. I would hate to see a drastic change like that.
Yeah, and I agree. I think for me, as I see the pitch clock starting to pick up steam with Manfred and everything. To me, we're getting there, and I think there's a lot of steps you can change that won't really impact the nostalgic of the game. My thing that I don't know why it's not discussed enough is, when Schilt goes out there to make a pitching change, why is he actually walking out there to the mound? Why isn't he just signaling it in? It's not like, when they sub in basketball, the coach doesn't go out there and, Phil Jackson's going to go grab Michael Jordan and say, hey, we're putting somebody in. So why are we spending time to walk out there? Additionally, the pitcher just spent 15 minutes warming up in the bullpen. Why does he get 8 pitches to warm up on the mound? Is the bullpen mound that different than the mound on the game? I don't see that. Give him a warm up pitch and let's get to action.
It's the butt slap.
I agree with that.
It's the butt slap, Eric. You know it. I know it. The American people know it. It's the butt slap. That's why we hold on to that precious. Watch that middle-aged or over middle-aged guy, probably my age guy, strut out to the mound, with his belly and slap you on the ass.
And they don't. And it's not like they're running out there; they're waddling.
No, they're waddling. Most of them are waddling out there.
So I think like small changes like that would really help speed the pace of play up. I mean, I the goal is to get it to 3 hours. I think the goal should be get it to 2.5 hours. I think from fans who attend the games in person, I think 3 hours, for whatever reason, 3 hours seems like a good experience. But a majority of the people don't watch it in live things.
I agree.
They watch on TV.
I agree that when you're willing to go, like 3 hours seems to be that magic number for some reason for baseball, right? Like if it's longer than that, I agree. It becomes like, okay, well, I'm ready to move on. They stopped serving beer 2 innings ago. I'm done. But I think that, it was, you sound a little bit, You sound the same, yet a little bit. I understand your logic a little bit better this time around than when we spoke on the phone. So I was like totally like I was Clint Eastwood on my front porch, get off my lawn with that notion.
Oh yeah, you definitely were. But at your age, that's understandable.
You're not that far behind, buddy.
I can't speak for you guys, but like the whole intentional walk thing, I sure don't miss it.
No, I don't either.
I mean, that's one thing of a lot of the people that are old school and they don't want baseball to change. Something like that I mean, nobody even thinks about it anymore. So, I mean, small changes I can definitely get behind.
Yeah, no, the intentional walk, I 100% with you on that, Chris. And I think Eric probably agrees with that one.
Yes.
You know,
mainly because I didn't have enough accuracy to throw 4 pitches in a row that wasn't to the backstop.
Well, you know what? That's my co-host on the next podcast. I'm about to jump on here shortly. Is he was violently pissed when they did the automatic intentional walk because he said, "Look, after a guy hit, this is his argument, and it's not a terrible argument, but hey, when a guy hits a home run, why the hell does he have to run around the bases?" Like in beer league softball, if you hit a home run, you don't. So
mainly because in beer league softball, those guys can't run around the bases.
Yes, fact.
Well, who was it? Jared on a podcast episode that said it ought to be the guys
that
ought to be forced to run around the damn bases.
Oh, yeah.
Run.
No, if you strike out,
man,
yeah.
You earned it.
Yeah, if you strike out, you should have like a pellet gun behind you and forced to run the bases that quick. But Pete was like, hey, something can happen during a intentional walk. Like if the guy really screws up or he gets too close, whereas a home run, it's basically a dead play, but they still make the guy around the bases. So, I mean, he's got a little bit of a point there. But my argument to that was a home run is like, it's a celebration and excitement for the crowd. Like that's one of the pleasers of the crowd. An intentional walk is not. It's a catcher standing up with his arm extended, and it delays everything. Like, what the hell is the point? Signal it, send him down just like they do in high school, and get it over with. So I was a big fan of that move.
Yeah, I think the argument for the home run trot, this is an entertainment industry. I know it's a sport, but in essence, it's entertainment, and that is what fans want to see. That's what I want to see is, see the guy celebrate and you're high-fiving in the stands, you're streaming at your TV, one way or the other. That's the entertainment value that you get. The intentional walk, there's no entertainment in that.
No, there's
bat flips and hair flips.
No, not in the one occasion, like once every 6 years, where somebody actually throws one close to the plate and somebody's like a Vladimir Guerrero will actually be able to hit it effectively, which would be like the only guy that could do that. I want to do a quick score check here on it's 8-4, guys. It's 8-4. Well, nicer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So some other things here, some other ideas that were thrown out, Eric. The international rule of starting a player out in second base in extra innings. Your thoughts on that?
I actually really like it. I think, I don't know if it should be the 10th or the 11th. I think that's debatable, but from a fan standpoint, I would be curious to see what the viewership or attendance at games past the 10th inning is. And if you could spice that game up a little bit, maybe get some more butts in the seats and eyes on the TV, you might do a better job of that. No one wants to see a 13-inning game in May. I, however, don't think in the playoffs it should do that. It's almost like you have two separate rules. You have the rule for the regular season, then you have a rule for the playoffs where you play it all out just like normal. But yeah, the guy on second base, I know it's mixed reviews in the minor leagues. I'm 100% on board with it because of the excitement value, the entertainment value it brings.
All right. So what do you think, Eric, about, I know you're as a pitcher, the pitch clock?
It never was an issue for me because I worked fast. I will say that from my experience, the pitchers who work slow, they tended to have worse defense played behind them. And they tended to be less successful overall from a win-loss perspective. Pitchers who work slow, it's tough to play behind. So why do I need to work slow to be more focused on that pitch? I don't see the value in that. Again, from the entertainment standpoint, I don't want to see a guy shaking, walking around the mound. I want to see action. And if I can't get in sync with the catcher, what pitch I'm going to throw within, 30 seconds, 25 seconds, whatever it is, then I don't want to watch it. And it also adds a little bit of skill. I mean, you have to be able to maintain your composure and go on to the next pitch. That's a skill that's not maybe everyone's going to have. And so it does add value to people who can be prepared to throw that next pitch or who can work fast. So it never, like I said, it never impacted me. I think it's good for the game. You know, if they would actually enforce it, which I don't know if they ever would enforce it, and you're going to call, you know, Kershaw, you're going to give the ball on Kershaw in the World Series Game 7, probably not. But
well, not to go back to the whole runner on second thing, but at the same time, I don't watch a whole lot of minor league baseball. I mean, I get updates and stuff, but it's hard to actually get to watch. But who's to say? I mean, if you're starting that guy on second base, wouldn't like 7 out of 10 times the guy at the plate just bunt him over to go ahead and try to get that run in?
I mean, it's going to depend on who's up. I mean,
true.
I would do I don't Ronnie remember this, but my perspective isn't put a guy on second base. My thing is you can start anybody, you can hit anybody you want.
Oh, that's right.
10th inning.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yours was, hey, look, no matter what happens after regulation, like you can rejigger your order, do whatever you want to bat whoever you want.
So I might hit, you know, Machado, Turner, Bellinger every inning for the rest of the game.
Did you say Machado? Did you say Machado?
Machado?
Machado. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I said.
Well, I was confused, man. I don't know if it's a different player.
But to me, I as a fan, I pay to see those guys play. I don't want to see, you know, some 8th place hitter, some pinch hitter hitting in a crucial spot to start off the 10th inning. I want to see those guys. I want to see action. You know, you
want to see the shootout. In the shootout in the NHL, they put their best scorers on that
exactly
shootout.
What I want to see.
So that's your perspective, and I get that. I genuinely do. I just I guess what I'm unable to do at this point is to figure out, okay, as far as pitchers go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you spent your best pitcher in the 9th inning. You replaced him because let's say this. You replaced your best arm in the bullpen in the 8th or 9th inning because his spot came up in the order in the 8th or 9th, and you had to switch him out. So in that inning, when you're able to bat whoever you want, if you say, look, I know my pitcher came out of the game, he got hit for, but can you refigure that part too? If you can come to a compromise where you can say, not only, my pitcher's out of the game technically, quote unquote, but in this extra inning thing you're proposing, if you could say, well, fine, then I can line up my best pitchers against your guys.
I got no problem with that.
Cool. Compromise. See, that's what we do, baseball. We just did it tonight.
Yeah, and if I'm Tony Clark, head of the players union, I want that, because now all of a sudden my closers, all my 3, 4, 5 hitters, now their value just went through the roof because they're going to get more ABs, more innings pitched, and more crucial situations, and the better players are going to get paid more money.
And your better pitchers get tested more often against the best, right? So if they can succeed in those situations, it's a win-win. Eric, I can't believe we agreed on this tonight. I didn't see it coming. I'm actually shocked. I actually hated this idea when you floated it.
Yeah, I want to see the best play the best. I don't want to see anything else. I mean, that's why, basketball is having this huge success right now, because you're getting the stars every time. There's only 5 guys out there. I don't have to see the 16th best player play in a crucial situation. It's LeBron James every time. That adds drama, adds value. I think baseball, while there is nostalgia to it, I get that. You got to adapt with the times. You got to change, or else you're going to get left behind. And I think that little changes like that, reordering thing can be a little drastic, but I don't really see a downside to it outside of people going, that's not the way I did it when I was a kid.
So are you pro DH coming to the National League?
100%. I don't pay to see Kershaw hit.
No.
Had to do it. I had to ask him.
No, that's the one thing. I mean, I guess my preference is for the strategy behind it, right? And exactly what I was just saying, Eric, is that, you bring a pitcher in the 8th inning because it's a tied game. Maybe it's a high pressure game where it's a lot's on the line. Bring in a pitcher, but however, his spot was up in the order in your half of the inning. Yeah, and you had to take him out because you had to put that bat in.
I got it. And again, I'm going to go with: do I want to see Mike Shildt be a great manager, or do I want to see the great players play?
Touche.
I used to play for Shildt, so I love him.
Oh, you play for? Hold on. Whoa.
Yeah, he was like a roving instructor. We used to hang out in the dugout all the time. But
he lives in Matthews. I'm going to stalk him in the off season. Get him on here.
I don't think I have his phone number. Sorry.
Damn it.
But yeah, I'll check.
Why did I marry your sister then?
I don't know. We ask that every time we get together, but
I love her. You know I do. 3 wonderful children. I give you 2 wonderful nephews and a niece. So just me. I did.
It's true. Yeah. But so to your strategy point, I want to see the players. It's a players league, you know. That's what I want to see. So I get it from the strategy changes, but I think it's more entertaining.
You know what? I don't disagree about the entertainment factor and shuffling it up. It's just, you know, baseball is very steeped in tradition. You know, we're used to the way we've done things. You know, don't change the game drastically. I know a lot of National League fans feel the same way. Like, we like the strategy. We like the different. We like the difference. We like the differentiation from the American League because our managers have to account for that during a game.
I get it. That argument I've heard all the time, and the thing I don't get is up until 1960, you only played 154 games. Up until 1977, I think there was no DH. So to say baseball doesn't change and the nostalgic, I mean, my dad was alive when there was no DH in the league. Yet they changed that. So why is our generation still stuck with this? What we had from the 1970s on, we're not changing. That's where I don't grasp. I mean, you have the shift that's, you know, I think is changing the game for the, you know, on the bad side of things. And this launch angle argument, all this, the game's changing, but yet we're not changing the rules.
We have some similarities then we have similarities I didn't predict. Let's tackle that one real quick because we have current baseball to talk, like in the last 10 minutes. But the shift, Eric, I mean, how did it even exist when you were playing?
No, hardly ever.
Yeah,
I mean, you might have that one lefty who pulls, and you'd shift over a little bit, but nothing like today. Today is completely different. It's changed. I mean, it's a mathematical game. They're looking at statistics and say, this is what we think will happen, and 75% of the time we'll be right. So it makes sense to do it that way. That's what the game's turned into.
So do you get frustrated when you see this from time to time? Like, guys get frustrated because the shift is on them. And I've always been at the mind that, you know what, if you have, like, you can only have eight men and a catcher on the field, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I say, you know what, you gotta have 9 men on the field. Put them wherever you want. It's at your own risk, right?
I don't have a problem with the shift. I don't like it, but I understand why they do it. I guess does
the frustration come with the hitters though, that they just can't overcome it? Is that your frustration?
Like Pujols, he can't overcome it. I saw some stat that he's, his stats have gone down so much because of the shift. It was ESPN or something, but I mean, you have to adjust. If you're not willing to adjust, that's your own problem. The defense adjusted to you. You need to adjust to them. It's a game of adjustment.
Some hitters are so stubborn they won't lay down a bunt to get these guys to quit doing it.
Which is why
I take pride in, like, I'm going to swing through anyway.
Right, and that's why you're absolutely right, Chris, and that's why I give Matt Carpenter a lot of credit this year, because he's laid down a few bunts, and it may not have eliminated the shift for him 100%, but it has made teams think twice about doing it.
And I think this is my personal opinion is, as the shift in this launch angle is happening, I think the organization that focuses in on pitchers who throw sinkers and changeups as opposed to 95 plus, they're going to be the ones who are more successful moving forward.
Hey, do you also think, Eric, that the organization that says, you know what, so these analytics all say you're going to do this, but we're going to focus on zigging while everybody else is zagging?
That's what I'm saying. Right now, they're looking at guys who throw 95 plus, throw heavy sinker or heavy sliders and all this stuff, get a bunch of strikeouts. That's great. That's expensive to pay for that stuff. I'd rather have a guy who throws 91, 88 with sink, and all of a sudden you try to lift that, you know what you got? A 4.63 double play every time. But these organizations are continually focusing on throwing the ball hard. And while it's successful, I think you can be even more successful throwing sinkers. You get lower pitch count. You can actually pitch more innings potentially, less wear and tear on the arm. I don't see why the organization aren't going for that. Well, I think that's going to be the next thing that you'll see. I mean, guys like Jake Arrieta, no strikeouts. All he does is throw sinkers. Look how successful he's been this year.
Yeah, he's been a beast. And I guarantee you, like, the Chicago fans, like, some won't admit it, but I know my 2 co-hosts probably will. They'd much rather see that guy on their squad this year than Yu Darvish, who's been non-existent.
But Yu Darvish gets strikeouts and he throws hard.
Exactly the point you just proved. So I'm actually disappointed tonight. I thought we'd disagree about a lot more things than what I was predicting.
Well, it's because you're opening your eyes as you age, and you don't want to be your father-in-law, get off my lawn type of guy.
My father-in-law.
Your father-in-law is a get off my lawn type of guy, and you're starting to see that I might know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
and I respect you for that. That's big for you to agree with me.
Yeah, well,
I feel the love.
Thanks, Chris. All right. Okay, a couple other things I wanted to touch on here, Chris. No, I'm not going to go there. Hold on. So that we mentioned it, or we talked about it at the top of the show, but I think we've got to bring it up again. I mean, this race is tight. I mean, it's tight now with the wild card. The Cardinals, 6-7 weeks ago, we never expected them to be here. And here they are. They're holding on to the wild card lead now by the slimmest of margins. I mean, let me do a score check here for us while we're on real quick. It is the bottom of the 6th inning. It's still 8-4. The Cardinals are going to most likely be a game ahead of the Dodgers. They got 3 more games ahead of them this week. They face Kershaw tonight. So they face the toughest pitcher the Dodgers can throw at them tonight. I believe that Gant is going tomorrow or Michaelis. Do you have that in front of you, Chris?
I don't, but it's one or the other.
It's one or the other, yeah. Yep. I like their chances of at least at a minimum coming out of this one. Split with the Dodgers, that's fine. You keep them 2 games behind you, and then I think we focus on the next series. But I think as far as the end of this year, into the run, I think the Cardinals looking at taking the National League Central. They can't do that. And we as fans can't expect that. I realize that it looks on paper right now, 4 games with like 16 games left, looks like a reality. But I think what you have to focus on is securing the second wildcard position minimum. But I would also hone in on Milwaukee and say, hey, look, who are their opponents? They're coming to our house. If we can get them within 2 games, we can force the wild card game at our house. And I think that's what Cardinal fans, all of us, should be focused on right now. I would love to see the Cubs against the Cardinals in a 1-game playoff to get in. I would love that because I don't think there'd be any pressure on the Cardinals at that point. They weren't even supposed to be here in mid-July. They weren't supposed to be around.
The one soft series that we have left is against the Giants, and I hate to say any series right now is soft. The way that we went into Detroit thinking that was going to be a cakewalk,
right. Yeah, absolutely. And those teams sometimes can sneak up on you, Eric. I mean, when you have teams like this who are out of it and they're calling up, a bunch of September call-ups, they're testing out their youth, their managers and whoever, they can make a lot more riskier calls. They can manage a game in a different way because they have nothing to lose. Whereas teams like this, like the Cardinals who are in it, might be a little tighter. And so we get to this point in the year, you can't take those teams that are out of the race for granted at all. Eric, since you said that Mike Schilt was a roving instructor and you've had some experience, you've had some coaching from him, what were your feelings when he first became the interim coach and then eventually they hired him for the head coach?
To be honest, I was really shocked, and I love Schilt. I just never thought he'd get a chance. I think historically, without playing in the major leagues, you have a very small chance of actually becoming major league manager. I mean, look at Joe Madden. It took him
years and years. Is it a credibility
years.
problem? Is that the thing with the players, that they fear that players won't respect them because they weren't there and did that?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, with the analytics of the game, most of the strategy is taken out of it. When you really think about it, the book says do this. The book says player guy there. Change the pitcher out after he's gone through the order twice. There's not a ton of strategy left for managers to do. It's, can you work with players? Can you get a cohesive clubhouse? And is it a is it a good atmosphere to work in? And that's things that I thought Schilt was amazing at when I played for him. We always talked. I love sitting there on the bench and talking with him, when I wasn't starting, or even talk with him between innings as if I was. So I thought he's really good at what he does. I just was shocked because he never made the major leagues that they actually would give him a chance.
Well, interesting thing I didn't even know about him. He appeared on an episode of Danny Mac's Scoops with Danny Mac. Chris, you probably know what I'm talking about. I had no idea that Mike Schilt had the same eye condition that Tommy Pham had. Teratoconus, I think is what it's called. And I probably believe that at the time Mike Schilt had it, you know, the science of eyesight wasn't as advanced as it was when Tommy Pham had his condition. So some of that could have very well been that Mike Schilt just didn't have the eyesight to be able to pull it off, and the technology and the medicine just wasn't there at the time to correct it. But I had no idea that that was his issue, that he had that same condition. So that was totally news to me. And that's why Mike Schilt had a ton of runway and patience with Tommy Pham, because he understood the condition that Tommy Pham was facing. Of course, Tommy Pham's no longer, you know, as a trade deadline shortly after Schilt took over, you know, Tommy Pham's dealt and has done, he's done really well at Tampa Bay. But yeah, Mike Schilt's he's a fascinating manager right now. And I think, Eric, that those of us that watch him on post-game interviews and get to hear what he has to say, it's a very big contrast to Mike Matheny. Mike Matheny didn't explain a lot of his moves. He didn't explain the logic. Mike Matheny, I mean, not a lot of times expressed, hey, look, that was a mistake. We probably should have pulled him out earlier, quote unquote, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
we
the
didn't
accountability.
really hear that. Yeah, right. And so, but Mike Schilt, I think to the media and to the microphone explains what he was thinking at the point in time. And I think that, look, I mean, there's a honeymoon period with the new manager, right? I mean, there's been a lot of success on his watch. It could be from a lot of different reasons. I certainly don't think that it's like 100% Mike Schilt's fault that they've had this great run. I think that they made some significant roster changes that Mike Matheny perhaps didn't have the benefit of drawing from when he was manager. But I believe at least at the time it was a good move to move away from Matheny. That didn't work. It wasn't working. He was a good replacement for La Russa at that time. But as rosters changed over and got younger, I just don't think it was working anymore. So I think Schilt, who has experience with a lot of these guys now, it's actually worked for them. So I don't know what to think of the guy. You know him 10 times better than we do as fans. But so far, so good, I think, on the Mike Schilt front, at least from a fan perspective.
Yeah, to me, the one thing that I'm waiting to see as a fan and knowing Mike is he's a very good friend. He was, you know, very open to talk with you. It's when adversity hits, how do you react to that? Is he going to be able to rein in, you know, any type of locker room issues? Is he going to be able to be a disciplinarian, which is important when guys aren't getting the job done?
Yeah.
Can he switch gears from being, you know, a winning nice guy to, hey, we're in a 4-game losing streak. This isn't working, guys. But do it in the right way. That's what I'm waiting to see. It's not about can you be successful right away. It's how do you overcome that first adversity? Right.
And it's no different than what you think of rookie players or pitchers. Like
Exactly.
When's the first time they don't have success and how they respond to that? Right. That's where you really kind of get the feel for who you're dealing with. So
to bring it full circle on the whole conversation today. That's why I want to see Luke Weaver out there instead of Wainwright. I want to see him battle through adversity. So for 3 years from now, when that matters, he can pull back from this experience and be successful.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It's a really good point. All right, guys, it's been an hour. Eric, I can't thank you enough for sharing your experience and thoughts with us tonight. I would love to have you on here again.
Yeah, anytime.
It's gone way better. We got along way better tonight than what I predicted.
Yeah, it was definitely great having you on.
Does that mean it's a bad podcast if we get
yeah, I was hoping there'd be more like, you know, like a Levitard, like controversial Levitard versus Manfred type of thing, but it didn't end up that way. So I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't have a throwdown, but I guess it's better than doing it during Christmas.
That's true. Well, usually me and you've had a few cocktails and we're sitting by the fire pit or something, away from those lunatics.
I don't have that fire pit anymore, though, man. We have to go down by the lake.
Oh, you don't have it anymore, or Florence is going to blow it away tonight? What's the?
No, I don't have one at all. I mean, that fire pit I had is gone. I mean, that's the old house, man. We moved, you know, closer to your parents.
Well, you need to get your father-in-law to go build you one. Then he's got nothing else to do.
It's true. As long as I get the materials, I think he can do it.
There you go.
All right. Hey, Chris. So we've got this Dodgers series who we're going to wrap up on Sunday with our new show, which is the series preview and wrap up show, which I think has been it's been pretty good. Those are shorter, more concentrated, more focused on the series that happened and the one that's coming up. And I think that I got to give real kudos to Jared for covering the first two. So I think he's done a fabulous job.
Yeah, it's definitely great to have that second show and kind of have a little bit of a revolving door with the Cardinals Nation 24/7 voices. I know Gene Bonds, Larry Cox, used to stepped in on the first one, but it's definitely something that we needed because, like you said, on these shows we concentrate a little bit more on personalized with the guest, also covering the week in review. But they get to dive into some of the stuff with series past and what's going forward. So it's definitely a good thing to have a second show, and hopefully everybody that listens to this tunes into that also.
Yeah. Again, Eric, thank you for joining us tonight. I do appreciate it sincerely. And if you're not watching us live, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and Radio Public. Radio Public is a great app. It works just like any other podcast app. And when you listen to on Radio Public, it throws a couple pennies our way towards production. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a win-win. We do this YouTube thing live at 7:30 Central Time every Thursday. We'll continue to do that. Eric, thank you.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll do it again. And Chris, any final words to Cardinals Nation?
It's easy to get frustrated, but keep believing in this team. We're legit. We've got a wild card spot right now. Keep fighting. Go Cards.
All right, everyone. We'll talk to you same time, same place next week on the weekly show. We'll be back again on Sunday night. It'll be a series preview and recap with random guests. I don't even know who they are yet. I think one of them. I think we might be able to get Crash on one of these.
Nice.
Maybe. It's kind of like a crash landing. You never know when he's coming, but he'll be there. So we're looking forward to that. In the meantime, everyone, I love you all so much, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye. Oh, boy.